I just read it like a few years back and just kind of stuck. But let's talk about. So Chris Finch and Tim Connelly said the Wolves could not afford to not trade for Rudy Gobert. The Minnesota Timberwolves pulled off the most surprising transaction this offseason when they traded 4 players and 4 first-round picks to the Utah Jazz for Rudy Gobert. Around the NBA, executives were shocked by the price that the Minnesota Timberwolves paid. And Chris Finch had to say this: we put up the 30 best players in the league on a board. At any given time, like there's maybe 3 or 4 of them available. Some aren't even available if you give up 10 picks. And if you have one you can get and he fits and does a lot of things that we like, the more that we looked at it, the deeper we went, like just the more we felt like we could not trade for him, end quote. The Wolves believe Gobert will elevate their defense while also unlocking Karl-Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, and D'Angelo Russell. Minnesota president of basketball operations Tim Connelly had this to say: it's a very small list of elite players. When you're able to add a difference maker and not trade a guy in a similar tier, it's so rare. We didn't think we'd get a call like this for a long time, end quote. What are your thoughts about Rudy Gobert being considered a top 30 player in the NBA? And does he really raise the ceiling? And does he unlock? And Karl-Anthony Towns, the power forward now. Anthony Edwards, a potential MVP candidate soon. And D'Angelo Russell, can he make up for his floundering in last year's playoff series? I want to hear your thoughts right here, Jackson.
Well, I have and I feel like a lot of people would maybe agree with this, or at least associate a little bit. I think it will be fine, especially in the regular season. It'll be more than fine. I have championship concerns about the fit just because of Rudy Gobert's past. However, Utah's been deteriorating defensively for several seasons now. I'm not worried about D'Angelo Russell. He's got that ice in his veins, as we all know, deloading. He was also one of Golf Balling's first famous followers, so I will always love D'Angelo Russell and root for him. Yeah, I mean, exactly kind of what we like. I feel like this is kind of one of the main points we say a lot. Like, when you have your franchise guy, Anthony Edwards, you surround him. I mean, Karl-Anthony Towns too. You have Karl-Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards. All right, so you got 2 boys. Now you got to get the proper talent around him. The draft picks won't mean anything because you're thinking you're either going to win, you're going to win a championship. We're going to have these guys for several seasons. Now we got Gobert for several seasons. Like, we're not really going to be interested in the draft for much longer. Maybe we can pair up a first-round pick or 2 first-round picks and one of our younger talents to get a star, but is he going to be better than Rudy Gobert? Is that ever even going to happen? So I have my doubts as far as long-term success, as far as winning a championship goes, but I'm thinking they'll figure it out to be, they'll be competitive, they'll be contending, they're a contending team. So now you have one of the best defensive guys in the entire league. And yeah, when I watch the Jazz, I don't even want to talk about the playoffs quite yet, but I'm excited to watch the regular season Minnesota Timberwolves because Anthony Edwards is a stud, Cat's a stud, Gobert's a stud, D'Lo's a stud. They got a lot of studs. Muted.
They do have a lot of studs. Good looks, buddy. But I think this team is going to be the best regular season defense, and I think this is a 50-plus win team in the regular season, and we've said this before. The biggest concern of this team is when you get to the second round of the playoffs. This team is a guarantee to the second round of the playoffs. But it comes out to, and like they have Taurean Prince and Jaden McDaniels.
Yep.
And, they have a lot of perimeter defenders. So it comes down to, and I think Chris Finch, I know Quinn Snyder's a good coach, but the problem with Quinn Snyder's is his schemes are incredibly complex. I'm a Chris Finch bias nut because he had the same exact journey as Nick Nurse, and Nick Nurse's first hire on his bench when he became head coach of the Toronto Raptors was to hire his long-term overseas rival, Chris Finch, as his lead assistant. And the first thing we did when we fired Ryan Saunders was get that man, Chris Finch. I think he's a genius. He is. Yep. And I think when you have a coach who's coached all over Europe, all over the world, like Chris Finch, and at all levels, I think he's the type of guy who understands it's not about the scheme. It's about building around the players you have. So many coaches, they get players that are like, how does the player work for us? No, it's about how can we make this work for the player. I think that's what Chris Finch does. And we've seen it with Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns and even D'Lo at times. So I think this is a team that they're in good shape.
I have my one other caveat is I think losing Patrick Beverley was just one of the most unideal possible things that could have happened.
I agree.
It's not Jared Vanderbilt's really enticing to me, but it's not the first round picks. It's not Jared Vanderbilt, it's Pat Bev. But free agency is always a viable option if McLaughlin isn't looking like he can, kind of give them enough off of the bench. If they're new additions in Bryn Forbes and Austin Rivers, Jalen Noel, further progression. There are guys out there still, even like, Eric Bledsoe. If you were really desperate, Rajon Rondo, like they'd figure something out. But it's a tough loss. It's a big culture loss.
It is a big loss. It hurts, but I think they've done a good job at bringing guys in, and they've kept guys. I think the reason why they kept the players that they did were that they thought they could keep the culture with those said players.